Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you the basics of GameMaker itself. I know I've made tutorials on specific systems, but I think now would be a good time to just kind of give you a rundown of the pretty much entire engine with a lot of the basic functionalities of it. So, when you first open up GameMaker, you won't be on this screen, you'll be asked to make a project. I would just make a blank game, name it whatever you want, and then you'll be here. The first thing I would take a notice at would be the folder system here. This is pretty much just for organization. It has nothing for functionality, as in, like, fonts don't have to go in this fonts folder, and you could also right click here and say create group, and you can create another folder just like that if you want to organize differently. I personally just use the default ones. Rooms, I just put in rooms, paths go in paths, and so on, objects go in objects. So, yeah, as for this, just organization. Next thing, I know a lot of people, when they first use GameMaker, they struggle when their pixel art looks blurry. If you go up to these top 3 bars here, menu, hit game options, and then you'll be on here. Now, what you want to do is just you want to go to Windows, and if that's the platform you're using or whatever you're using, go to Graphics and interpolate colors between pixels, turn that off, and that will fix all that automatically. So now that you have that, that will fix that, and that's also where some other game options are, like, let me just go here again. You could also have images, like your icon for your game, splash screen, you could disable that as well. If you want an installer, I personally don't do installers. I'm not a huge fan. Display name, project name, product, your company, whatever you want to put here, copyright, description, anything that involves the actual game file itself, that's going to be in there. Now, the top bar, we're going to look at the file, basic stuff like new project, open project, import project, not as important, recent projects, that's good to know. Save project or control S you can do. Save project as, that's if you want to make a duplicate, that's normally what I would do. Export project, I don't normally do it here, I normally just do the build. New IDE, this will just refresh everything. Preferences, it's going to bring up everything here as for what font you're using. Just literally everything to do with your IDE. Personally, I don't really mess with it much, just because you can mess it up pretty bad. Then there's exit, it'll just close the software. Now we go to edit, undo, redo, search and replace, not too important. Everyone knows undo, control Z, it's the most important thing, and control Y for redo. Build, I don't normally use this menu, because they do have another icon for it, so I would just ignore this one. Windows, this will just bring up any of the these little windows that you have here in your Docker. I wouldn't really worry too much about those. As long as you don't close them, you'll be good. And like, let's say if I close assets right here, I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? I go here, asset browser, right here, and then I can just drag this to the right. It'll dock it back where it was. Next, tools, texture groups, audio groups. I never use texture groups, but I use audio groups. Sound mixer, not super important, just because they'll be mixed outside of the engine most of the time. Generate project images. I've never seen this actually, so I could not tell you. That might be pretty cool. Create local package. This is just if you want to bunch a bunch of your objects or sprites or whatever into a package that you could send to a friend. They could just import local package, and they can go about doing that, finding these packages right here. They could easily import it into their game, and boom. Project tool, I've never used. Package manager, not super important. Marketplace, this is just if you want to go download some assets. You can go do that. Layouts, not too important. This is just if you want to save your Docker layout. Help, this will have the manual and then pretty much just random stuff that can help you, but that's why I'm here anyway. Source control, do not touch this. This is not good. If you want to use source control, just use GitHub. Much more reliable than the outdated legacy source control stuff. Anyways, we covered those. Next, we have the home. This is actually a closed project. It'll go back to the kind of main menu kind of thing where you can create a new game. Then there's a new, load, save, kind of just, it splits it into these icons as well. Create executable, this is the build, and this is build and run. So this is if you're done with your game, you want to make a build and send it to your friend, boom, that's what you want to do. Debug, this is running in debug mode just so you could see like how much FPS, how much RAM is being used. You could also run the debug profiler, which will see any unoptimized parts of your game and at least let you know. There's run, so you can test your game. Stop, so you can close your game. Clean, if you ever have any issues with your sprites in your game showing up as weird textures, just hit cleans the cache, and that will be good to go. Next, game options. It's the same thing I showed you with these here. It's just a little shortcut. This is help, and then this is just zoom in, zoom out, or you can just use your mouse to do all that. And then this just collapse and dock the panels if you don't want them visible, which I personally love having them visible at all times just because it's kind of needed. Next, I want to cover is rooms. Now, rooms are in these rooms folders. I mean, believe it or not, this is actually your game world in a way. Think about it that way. So you have a couple options here on the left on the inspector. You have the room name. If it's persistent, don't worry too much about that. And the main two things that I would say worry about are the width and height. So this is the actual width in pixels of your game world. So if you want to do 480, 270, maintains that aspect ratio. It doesn't really matter too much though, as long as you have a camera. But the issue is if I do run this now, it's going to be really tiny. See that? So to make the window bigger, but still display, that's where viewports come in. So I would enable viewports, viewport 0, which is just the first one. Hit visible. So if I zoom out here, this is what the game will see. So if I were to run this, the window will be bigger, but the game world was only this big. So what I want to do is set my camera to equal somewhere within the room here. And then this is your window resolution. So this is actually the size of your window that opens up. So if I run that, boom. Now the window's big, and anything in this room would be scaled up to look good. That is a requirement, I would say, with making your game look good. Next, object following and all this. I personally don't like using it. I would make your own camera system, which there's plenty of tutorials out there. And I actually do have one myself on it. So anyways, and at the bottom here is room physics. This is if you want to use the built-in physics system. I don't fully recommend it just because it is a bit hard to work with. Anyways, so the next part of this, I'm going to be showing you the sprite editor. So if you were to right click on the sprites folder, hit create or alt S, and then hit sprite. Then we'll just name the sprite test. So that is the name. You can change the size of it here by inputting the size. You can resize it. That's enough of that there. Then there's edit image, import. These you don't have to worry too much about. This you do. This is actually the collision of the sprite. And then 9 splice. This could be a whole separate video. It's a big thing. Anyways, if you just want to draw something, edit image. It'll open up their sprite editor. Control mouse wheel to zoom, unless you're on laptop mode, which there will be a button here to turn that off. But yes, control zoom, middle mouse button to pan, mouse wheel to do that. And yes, that is how you navigate that. There's a bunch of tools. We got the paintbrush, eraser, color remove, color replace, paint bucket, line tool. We have a rectangle and a rectangle fill. It's 2 parts to this one tool. Same with circle fill. Then we have this is the polygon, polygon tool. That's the outline. This is the fill. I don't use that one really. The arch kind of thing I've never really used. So yeah. Then there's the text tool. I personally never use this because you'll want to do that in the actual code. Color picker, so if I have a bunch of colors here, and I change my color, and then I hit the color picker, and I do that, just, selects a color again. Then we have the selection tool. You can move stuff around, you can delete it, whatever you want to do. Then we have the paint selection tool. Don't really know what that does. The magic wand tool. This one is so useful. Let's say I don't want to select the whole surface because there's that. I'll just do that. Selects all the pink. And I can just delete that. Rotate. Not too useful in GameMaker because it does blur it. Flip tool, which is a vertical mirror, then a horizontal mirror. And then there's just a pan image. So if you have a bunch of stuff like right here and you just want to pan it, you can move the whole thing. Which it's no different than doing this. Don't know why they have that actually. Anyways. Now that we have that covered, some other things with this. If you go to image at the top, which only shows if you are in the sprite editor, you could do mirror and flip. Same kind of things here, but those will do it with your brush, what you have selected. This will just do all frames, selected frames. So if I do mirror, it'll mirror to the other side, which it'll be easier to see if I do this. Then do image, mirror. Boom. Then it flips, and you can do the same thing with mirroring vertically. Next, you got onion skin. I don't use it much, but if I go to this, it's not working. Okay. Oh, here we are. I have to move that there. And now I can see the previous frame if I want to do an animation like here. And then you can preview the animation, turn off onion skinning here if you want it to repeat or not. Or you can just play it once through. I put it on repeat. Next is effects. There's grayscale and blur. Not too much. If you want to blur, you can definitely do that. Hit apply. Apply. I don't like blurring stuff normally. And then you can do grayscale as well. And if you want to select the speed of the animation, go back to the sprite here, and you can select the speed, 12 FPS or 2 FPS, which will be much slower. And yes. Now, getting into importing stuff, I actually have one imported here. If you hit the import button, and then you select a sprite sheet or just an image, let's say you did a sprite sheet like this. Obviously, you don't want this as one sprite. So if you go to image, you could hit convert to frames, and now it'll open this little window here. You can select the width, which mine is 24 by 24. And now how many frames there are. So I'm just going to change this until, so there's 10 in total, and that looks good. I'm going to hit convert. Boom. Converts it into an animation, which this is all my player animations. And obviously that's really, really fast. So I'm going to do 12. And this is just him moving here. Now, with objects, we're going to create an object for this player. I'm just going to do test object. And we're going to see here's a couple different options. We got visible, solid, persistent, uses physics. Only worry about the visible. Only really thing that matters. And let's say you close that. You could reopen that with the events. And we're going to select a sprite. And that will select the sprite that we had there. This one's not too important. Don't worry about that. Physics, not important. Parents, we're not going to cover those yet. I don't think we're going to cover those in this video, just because parents have so many different uses in this game. I mean, in this engine. So anyways, events. This is where all programming comes into play. Still programming, not the visual code, but there's very important ones. The most important ones are create, step, and draw. Now, you do see these mouse and key events and stuff. I recommend you do not use them just because they are very awkward and they're very reference heavy. So if I was going to do any kind of input, I'd put it in the step event, which, yep, so I should probably explain. The create event is so this only runs once. It's the first frame that the instance exists in the game world. So this will run once, and this is where you would create variables and initialize everything. So if I create this, this is where I can say like, oh, my name equals major dev, right? And now name would then be associated with major dev. So stuff like that, and that would only run once. Now the step event runs once every frame. So every single frame, this will run in the loop. Depending on if you know any other engines or... Yeah, it might sound familiar, but if not, it's the same as a void update in Unity, and I forgot what other engines use that as well. But then we have the draw, which is everything visual. So this is for either calculations, this is for visual, and actually in these order, these are performed. So it goes create, and then only for the first frame though, then it goes step, draw, and then step, draw, every frame. These both happen every frame, so the draw as well. And now, if you do see, there's actually multiple kind of steps. There's a begin step, which will happen before the normal step, and an end step, which will happen at the end of every step. It's confusing. I would just use a step. Alarms, I would ignore it because it's not actually able to be used with delta time. Draw, we have draw and draw GUI, most important ones. We also have draw begin, draw end, draw GUI begin, draw GUI end. Not as important than pre-draw and post-draw. Sometimes important for post-draw, for application surface stuff. Not super important though. And then we just have the mouse events, key down, key pressed, key up. That's why I don't like these. I really don't. Gesture. Now this is for mobile stuff. Most of the time you won't use them, or ever. I've never personally used them, but they are here. Collision, I do not use these at all. They are a key. Other, these are useful. Outside room, so if I put outside room, then it'll say, hey, if this object is outside the room, run what is ever in that event. And room start, which is pretty much the same as create in a way, but I'm not going to say anything. Room end, game start, game end, not super important. Animation stuff, not important. User events, these are just predefined stuff. Broadcast messages, these are used for trigger events within sprites. So if I go here, there's a little add broadcast message. So on this frame, I want it to say jump or something like that. And then within that broadcast message, it will see that it received a message called jump, which that's a whole separate thing, and that's pretty hard to get set up. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. But yes, and then we have asynchronous. This is mainly for packets. I don't want to say that. I use it for multiplayer and networking, especially with Steam. That's how the Steam stuff works. There's a bunch of different... These are pretty much just like when it receives this message, it does some certain result. Not super important for beginners, or even intermediate, for that matter. Anyways, that's the basic event system. But yes, next I want to cover the particle system, which this is actually so much easier to cover now, ever since GMS2 came out with their particle editor. You can actually preview this particle, so you see it's kind of like a cloud of smoke. And everything is handled in the inspector here, so I'm just going to make it a little bigger. So we have a couple different options. This stuff you can't really tell much, but if you click on this little emitter, now, now it's doing it. Just enabled, preview, preview color, don't worry about those. Mode, so if you want it to be a burst, and then you hit this to restart the animation. There's a stream, which is a constant. We'll just do stream because it's easier to see. Particle count, you could say 10, super dense, so that's probably one every frame. delay units, interval, stuff like that. Don't worry about shape unless you want to like change this shape here, if you see. Yeah, that's just the area in which it can do it. I'm just going to set it to a circle, which says ellipse. It's because you could stretch it, like an oval, pretty much. Next, we're going to change the texture, so you could either do... there also is a library of these. I don't like using them, so I'm not going to. You could either select a sprite for your particle, which I'm just going to use a pixel. And if I zoom in, it looks very awkward in this editor. So let's do like circles like this. Color. So you see how there's 3 color slots. This is the life of it. Let's say I want it to start red, then go blue, and then disappear. So I just turn the alpha to 0. So if you look there, that looks pretty cool. It's almost like a fire in a way, a very weird one. Life. This is how long each particle can stay alive. Let's say minimum 10, maximum 50. This will add a little bit of like randomness to it. Next size, we could do 0.2 to 1, so they'll be anywhere within that range, or we could even do, no, let's do 0.5 and 0.01. Just so the size is a little different every time. Next, we have increment and wiggle. I wouldn't worry too much. Speed. Let's say minimum 1 speed, maximum 3. You'll see that they're moving all at random speeds now. Gravity. If I want to do that, I'm going to put 0.1. It just kind of goes up, then back down. And you can set the direction of the gravity as well. You can mimic wind this way. But yes, then there's direction. If I do 0 degrees to 360 degrees, it'll go out randomly. Orientation, this is just going to be the rotation. If I do 0 and 360, you really can't tell circles though, so I'm going to change these to squares. There, look at that. And then we have subparticles, not too important, but that is the super basics of the particle system for making them. Creating them in game, you could either put them on an asset layer, like if I just drag it in, it'll say create an asset layer. You could do that, and then if I were to run this, it is visible in game. Now, there are some other ways to handle it, but that is for another day. Anyways, next we're getting into the actual coding stuff now, so we're just going to make that smaller, and we're going to learn about variables. Now, variables are extremely important. You cannot have a game without variables. You probably can, but it wouldn't be that good. Anyways, we're going to make a variable called speed. Not this speed, this speed. It'll turn blue because that is not a recognized variable. And I just put equals and then whatever I want it to equal. It could be 0, it could be false, it could be true, it could be an array, it could be a struct, it could be literally anything. Let's just say speed equals, actually speed equals 1. So if I were to go in here and say x coordinate plus equals, so add to the x and add speed. Now how much would that add? It would add 1. Because the word speed is related to the number 1, which that's if it was only read-only. It would be kind of pointless because then I could just put 1. But since it's not, I could say speed plus equals, so add to speed 0.1. So it'll be 1 plus 0.1, so it'll be 1.1, then it'll be 1.1 plus 1.1, sorry, 0.1, then it'll be 1.2. So that's the good thing. It's read and write. So you can pretty much change the variable and read the variable as the value it currently holds. Super useful. And then another type of variable is a temporary. I'm just calling it temp. So let's just do variable, right? Variable equals 0. Now, thing with var, so it is technically temporary, not stored in memory. I guess that's debatable sometimes. But pretty much after this step event, this variable will be deleted. So let's say you want to do a calculation like 10 plus 50. That would be a good use of this, or x plus 50. So it'd be the current x variable plus 50, x value, sorry. And then I want to say x plus equals variable, right? This is not a good use of it. And then after this, this variable will not be stored in memory, being very optimized for calculations. Next is a global variable, global dot. This pretty much lets me access this global dot speed from any object or any script without any need for referencing otest object. So I could just say global or x plus equals global dot speed. And I don't have to say anything. But I could also have this in a different object and be like, hey, x plus equals global.speed. It'll know what that is because this object already defined global.speed. Now, that is pretty much the basics of variables. It means something with a word or description almost, but it's also changeable, and you could use it for calculations and storing stuff just so it's easier to read everything. Next, we have basic functions. This is going to be more extreme. So we're going to cover different conditions. If, think about it as English as possible. If what, then this. So let's say if global.speed is equal, so is equal to, is two equal signs. So that's if you're checking if something is equal to. You could also do less than or equal, or greater than or equal, but we're just going to say equal to 1, which in this case, global.speed is equal to 1. Then use these curly brackets to make a nest. You could also visualize it like this. I personally like doing it like this. So if this is true, whatever is within these two brackets will run. So if I say game end, so this will pretty much end my game. So if I run this, my game should open. Oh, and since that object is not actually in the room, let's actually drag this object in here. Like that. My game opened for a split second and closed because speed is equal to 1. And we'll say show message, and this will pretty much just be a pop-up. Speed is 1. I run that, and there it is. Okay, the next thing I want to cover is the else statement. So else is actually attached to if. It's the same kind of thing here, still within this kind of scope here. So if this, then do this. Else, and then a new one here. If you hover over this, connects to that. Hover over to that, connects to that. Else, so this will pretty much say, hey, is it equal to that? Or if it's not, I'll just have it say speed is not equal to 1. So if I change this to 0, and I were to run this, speed is not equal to 1. If I change that to 1, speed is 1. Just like so. Now, next thing is if I do a switch, same kind of scope thing. Most of the stuff is going to use these. Now, what are we going to switch? Now, switch is weird. Pretty much this is going to be the check. It's pretty much multiple if statements within one statement. So I could say case 1 and then break. So instead of using these here to like simulate the nest, you use the colon and then break. And then we're actually just going to do 2 and 3. And we're going to do show message 1, 2, and 3. Just like so. And now if it's equal to 2, in this it should show message 2, because it's case 2. See? 2. Now if it's equal to 3, it will display 3. Just like so. Now, that's as basic as I can make that. That is more something you'll experiment with yourself and get working. Now, 4. 4 is used in loops, which normally look like this. That is just a for loop. So I know that looks complicated. It is complicated. But you will do it so many times that you will get so used to typing it like that understanding it is almost irrelevant. So this for loop, this is the starting number, and this is the number it will go to. So this is used a lot in inventories for looping through every slot in the inventory. So this would be slot 0 in the list, and this would be the total amount of inventory slots in the list. And then it will do something for each slot within this. that's as deep as I'll cover that. While, very similar concept. Let's say while speed is not equal to, let's say, 100. Even though speed is 3, and while it's not equal to 100, we're going to say global.speed equals 100. Or, sorry, plus. We're going to add a 1 to speed if it's not equal to 100. And now if global.speed is equal to 100, so this is the if statement from before, we're going to show message 100. We're going to run this, and wow, within 1 frame, so pretty much when it hits this, it'll keep doing it until this condition is met. Now we're going to do something different here. We're going to say show message global.speed. So speed is currently 3, correct? So to make it 10, we need 7. So let's say repeat 7 global.speed. Speed plus. Now if we run this, it should display 10. Yep, because it repeated it 7 times, and it'll keep repeating 7 times every frame. And yes, that is how you do repeat. Now as for conditions, those are going to be all the ones I will cover. Now for instance creation, we have instance create. So instance create depth is the one I use. You also have instance create layer. This will pretty much create an object using code, and you pass in these parameters at the bottom. So X, Y, the layer you want. So that's why I don't like using layer. I just do depth. Depth, just put 0. Object, the name of the object, and then you don't need anything else there. That'll create the object at these coordinates at that depth, and that is the object. And now if I write instance destroy, if I don't put anything within this, it'll destroy itself. So if I go ahead and run this, he's not there. And now if I were to put the name of an object, it'll delete that, but just remove that, and now we'll see that the player is there. Oh, he's not there. Why is he not there? Oh, it's because I have a draw event. But yes, he should now be there when I'm not deleting it. Yep, there he is. Now, you could also check if instance exists, and then the name of the instance, so a test object, which obviously it does exist if it's the one checking for it. And this could just be, hey, if that instance exists, do this. We also have stuff like room go to. So if you have multiple rooms, we're in room 1, and so you have another room, you can say room go to, and then the name of the room. It'll show in red, and that will change that room. You also have room restart, which will just restart the base part of your room. It's good for like let's say you're making a platformer game with different levels. Each level is its own room, and let's say you want to restart the level, you just say room restart, and boom. But that's a little bit different when you go to game end, which I used earlier. It'll close the game, and game restart, which will restart your game completely. Super simple. I don't have to go too in depth on those. Collision. So pretty much seeing if you are touching something. So this is another thing where I say I don't use these collision events because they're kind of useless. I could say if place meeting XY, so at my current coordinates, with a certain object. Let's say collision, right? If I had an object called collision, it would return true or false, or run this if I am touching collision. Ooh, jeez, excuse me. There's also stuff like if point in a rectangle, where you could do the mouse coordinates, so mouse X, mouse Y, and then a rectangle, so the top left to the bottom right. And it'll pretty much say, hey, if my mouse and Y is within that rectangle, then run whatever is in here. Super simple. That's all we'll cover in collision. But now we'll go into drawing, which is all visual coding. Now we have simple stuff like draw sprite. But let's say if I have a draw event on my player, and I run this, you can't see the player because there's nothing in the draw. But if I do draw self, it will completely see the sprite again and do everything it needs. You could also say draw sprite. There's also draw sprite ext and draw sprite stretched. Right here. There's a bunch of these. But let's say I wanted to draw the player, like another player on top of the player. I could say S player animation. Let's just say subimage 0, so that's the first frame in the animation. And then the X and Y of the player, but I'll do Y minus 16, so it's drawn above the player. If I do that, you'll see that it's drawing that sprite. Super simple there. You could also change the sprite that it's using by saying sprite index equals and then whatever sprite name you have, like S player animation is what I have right here. You could also say image index, which is what frame in the animation. So if I do 0, it'll never get past the first frame. But if I say like, yeah. And let's say I want to do image speed. So this is the speed of the animation. So if you remember, I manually set it to 12 FPS in here. And image speed is by default at 1. So that's 12 multiplied by 1. So if I did 0.5, it would technically be doing 12 multiplied by 0.5, which is 6 FPS. So that is what that animation will be playing at. That's super simple. We're going to move on to audio. Now audio, way easier. If you just say audio play sound, it's as simple as this. And there's also audio stop sound or stop all. You could stop a specific sound. Like let's say I play a sound. This would be the name of the sound in this folder. And then the priority, I just put 0. Loops, so it's true or false if it loops. I'm just going to put false. And if this was an actual sound, it would play every frame. So let's say you want to do it just on when the player spawns. You can do that right there. Super simple. And then same thing with audio stop sound. Wherever you want to stop the sound, just go ahead, put the name of the sound, and boom, it stops. Next, we're going to get into some more basic stuff here. Sorry, not basic. We're going to get out of the basic stuff. So in this create event, let's say I put randomize. This will pretty much randomize the seed that the game runs on. And pretty much, let's say you have a function that picks a random number. If you don't put randomize at the beginning of your game, it is actually not going to be random. It will run the same for anyone who runs that. It'll always be the same order in which you'd pick those random numbers. But if you put randomize, it is completely random. Next, if you want to find the distance between one point to another, you could say point, or to say var distance equals point distance between, let's say, the player and the mouse. That will return the pixel distance between my player and my mouse coordinates. Now, let's say I want to find the direction in which, so from my player to the mouse, what angle is that pointing towards? So if I just change this to a point direction, XY mouse X, and then mouse Y, that'll return 0 through 360 degrees. Super important for doing some other stuff. And let's say you have a, this might go completely over your head. Oops. Let's say we have distance and direction. With this kind of stuff, we could do a like an x offset equals length dir x. So this would be x plus. So from my player, we're going to go a distance of to my mouse in the direction of from my player to my mouse. So if I actually do this on both x offset and y offset, this is a very complicated way to do it. But pretty much these coordinates right here are equal to my mouse coordinates. Even though I'm not passing my mouse coordinates, I just have the direction and distance to my mouse. But this will actually be the coordinates of my mouse. But I could also just use mouse X and mouse Y, so it's a bit pointless to do it this way. But there's so many uses for this formula, especially for rotating a certain distance around the player. If I do like 5, it'll go towards my mouse, but only stay 5 pixels in every direction around my player. So that's super useful. Next we have choose. So if you say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'll choose a random thing that was inputted into this. Yep, so if I say like var num for number equals choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have this randomize. Make sure you have the randomizer, or else it won't be random. We'll just do show message num. And this will show every frame, so it'll pick a new number every frame. It'll do 4, 4, 2, 4, 4, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. It just picks random numbers. So, yep, super easy, super useful. Clamp, so let's say I don't want my speed to go below 0 or above 10. I'm going to say global.speed equals clamp, and then put the variable you want to clamp, and then the minimum 0, maximum 10. This will prevent it from going below 0 or above 10, and make sure if it's like at 12, it'll just set it to 10. Or if it's at -5, it'll set it to 0. Super easy, clamps, super useful, and yes. Next we have lerp, so let's say I want to say global.speed equals lerp, speed, or sorry, and then in lerp you need the variable that you have, your current variable, the variable, the amount you want to go to. So if it's at 3, let's go to 10, and do 0.1, which is 10%. So if I were to run this and just show you, oh, I should probably show message global.speed, just so we can kind of see this. It starts at 3, and it goes 10% closer to 10 from 3. So it goes 3.7, 4.3, 4.9, 5.4, and then just so on until it reaches 10. But it slows down the closer it is to 10, and it creates a nice smooth effect going to that number. So it's very useful for like smoothly moving one object to another place and making it look super good too. But lerp, pretty much interpolation. Round. I don't think you need much of an explanation for round. Pretty much if speed is equal to 3.5, if I say round global.speed, it'll equal 4 if it's 3.5, and if it's 3.4, it'll equal 3. So, yes. And same concept with floor. So if it's 3.5, it'll equal 3. So it always takes the least round down. So it doesn't round up at all. It just rounds down. So if it's 3.9, it'll equal 3. If it's 4, it'll equal 4. If it's 4.1, it'll equal 4. And same concept with ceiling. If it's 3.1, it'll equal 4, because it'll always round up. So if it's above 3, it's 4. Pretty much. Anyways, yeah. Then we have minimum. So pretty much, let's say you have 2 variables, one for speed minimum and speed maximum. If I want to find the minimum of those 2 numbers, I would put min and max, right? Obviously you can't use those names, but it would return the one that's smaller. And same thing with max, it would return the one that is higher. And then sine. This is just a trigonometry term for a radian angle. So pretty much, let's say in sine, you input time multiplied by a magnitude. This will, actually let me open up Paint for this. Let's say this is 0, this is 1, and this is -1. Now, if I put the magnitude to be 1, right, and time is just, think of time as a timeline, right? Let's say this is 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. At 3.14, technically the halfway, this is going to be the intersection point. And let's say this is 0 and this is whatever. Sine will create a wave that will change this value to equal whatever it is on this point at that time. So let's say the magnitude is 1, or if it's 2, then it'll go way up here and way down there. But pretty much you can create a bobbing effect if you just change the x coordinate to a sine wave. Super complicated, by the way. But yeah, next thing I want to cover is an array. So, if we have an array, which an array in simple terms is a list of something. And it could be multiple lists inside of the list as well, but we're just going to do a single 1D array. Array equals, you don't have to actually say array, you can name it whatever you want, it's just a variable. And then you just put the square brackets. Let's say you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 things in this list. They're all the numbers. They don't have to be in order. You can do 5, 2, 3, 4, 1. And it reads in that order, 5, 2, 3, 4, 1. And if I were to say, what is the second index, or what's at the second part of this list? If I say array 1, because that's a weird thing with arrays, starts at 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. If I say array 1, what is array 1? It is 2. Array 2 is equal to 3, array 3 is equal to 4, array 4 is equal to 1. It's just a list that you can access, so var temp equals array 4. If I say that, temp is actually equal to 1, because it pulls from that list. And arrays go hand in hand with for loops as well to make inventory systems and all that jazz. Next, I want to cover structs, just very briefly. We're going to just call this struct equals, and instead of doing, it's a similar thing to arrays, but instead of the square brackets, we're going to use the squiggly brackets, and we're going to say like random stuff in here. So these are pretty much category names. So I'm going to put name and then a string, and I'm going to put sprite and then a something, you know. I'm just going to do these. Actually, I'll even put like health or something in here. Let's do 15, weird number. Let's say the name is watermelon. I don't know, it's the one thing I thought of. Watermelon. So this struct is actually it holds all this data. So let's say I want to know the name in this struct. If I say struct.name, and let's just actually show, let's show the struct.name. If I do that, it should say watermelon. Yep, just like that. So it pulls that data from here, and if I say sprite, just struct.sprite, so it holds a reference to it. And now it says undefined because I did not put anything here. And if I say health, it should read 15, just like so. Okay, and the next thing I want to cover in this, and this will probably be the last part in this series, this tutorial, sorry, is inputs. So how do you check if you like press something on your keyboard or your mouse? So the if condition, if let's say keyboard check, this will check if you are holding down that key. Now if you do keyboard check pressed, this is just the first time you hit it. And then there's also released, not as used, but let's say pressed, right? If I press, let's say E, you can't put E, since it's an ordinary key, you have to put ord, and then in quotes, capital E. But let's say it's a space bar, you do VK_space, virtual keyboard space. That's just something you have to get used to there. And then whatever in here will run when you press that key. And same thing with mouse check button. So you could either do button and leave out pressed, and that'll just be when you're holding it. Pressed is just for the one click. And for that, you could do MB, so mouse button, and then any, left, middle. I wouldn't do none, and then do right, and then you have the side buttons on your mouse. Just mouse button left, super easy. If you click, show message, hello. So in the game, I click, it says hello. That easy for inputs. So anyways, guys, we're not going to cover surfaces today just because those can be pretty long-winded. But anyways, if you guys like these tutorials, please let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. I would be more than happy to fulfill any recommendations you guys do see that you might want me to do. But if this helped you guys, please do let me know. It's good to know where I would have missed out on some explanations or just like tips and tricks and stuff. But do keep updated with my videos. I will be posting a lot here soon, especially when this video comes out. There's going to be a whole bunch that I post. So anyways, hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I hope this helped you.